I'm receiving these messages and it's all of love. Every time our ancestors connect in, they never shame us. It's never about, you need to be doing this or this. Even if I'm working with someone who has maybe who's an alcoholic or someone who deals with major depression or who's tried to commit suicide, right? Is our ancestors, they don't judge us. They want to help us heal. They want to help us be loved and guided. And that also goes for people of all different walks of faith. And that's what was really eye opening to me is that, you know, whether or not someone was Christian or someone was Buddhist or someone maybe was more on the spiritual path, I found they were all in the exact same space on the other side, the same light. And it wasn't one above another. It was that they were all working together in different ways to bring healing. And that also comes across with maybe, maybe who someone who has the same sex attraction, or maybe they were married to the same sex. They were seriously in the same place as someone who had been, like, as you could say in quotations, like a worthy Christian. And to me, that was so eye opening because I had been taught differently in a lot of those ways. And so that kind of the combination of feeling like I had wounding taken place in religion and then also seeing that there's so much more, it like definitely brought a space or like a gap. And I remember talking to you a lot about this and just feeling so torn. And I remember us both discovering through meditation and journey work that religion and spirituality and any kind of person's perception is exactly what they need. And that goes with Holy Scripture, Holy Text, is like, there's not one way to make it. There's not one way. Mm-hmm. There are so many different avenues that can bring healing and love. And ultimately, we talk about the Holy Scripture in all different areas, which I've been studying a lot more about, is like they all bring different ways of this God's love, of this Christ consciousness, Christ atonement, you could say, all of those things. It's all brought in together, just said and spoken differently. And yet we have so much division, but ultimately it's all saying the same thing, just different wording. The context is very similar. And so that's been a big eye opener for me is I don't feel like I'm as judgmental or as black and white that it has to be one way, because there are times where maybe Christianity is extremely wounding for someone, and they might need to take a step back and do a lot more yoga or meditation or give themselves space to connect into God or to connect into the great creator in a different way. And none of that's bad and wrong, because we all came here to live our own unique spiritual journeys. Yes. And that's one thing that I stand by 100% is like, no one should have the ability to tell anyone what their spiritual journey in this life is going to be, except for that individual. And I say that because I gave my power away so many times to other people. I could have taken away a whole lot of heartbreak if I would have learned to stand on my own and to trust my own space. And of course, that's a process. But I just know that there's so much good throughout the world. There's so much good in spiritual views, in different kinds of religions. Like, I don't feel like there's only one right way. And if we all believe in a loving God, God wouldn't only have one way for us to come home or come into remembrance of who we are.
Exactly. And really, it's about those Christ-like attributes that we are trying to cultivate through that remembrance. It's like coming back into remembrance of your true divinity, if that be the Christian faith way, or if that be the Buddhist way, or the Krishna faith, Hindu faith. If you're coming, whatever angle you're coming from, it's really about coming into remembrance of your divinity and cultivating that remembrance and those attributes that come with that remembrance into the physical world. Like, what does that look like?
Absolutely.
To be able to serve others, it should come from a place of love, of brotherhood and sisterhood. And that's talked about in the Hindu faith, that's talked about in the Buddhist faith, that's talked about in the Christian faith. It's talked about in religions all over the world.
Absolutely.
Why do we get so wrapped around the axle around language? Why do we get so caught there? Like it
Yeah.
has, like we have monopoly. And this reminds me of a teacher that spoke the other day. What you were saying just kind of brought me back to this talk that she did. She's like, who are we to think as Christians that we have monopoly over Christ's teachings and cultivating the attributes of Christ energy or consciousness in the world? She's like, it shouldn't matter what faith you come to. If it's centered in love, hope, and healing, that's all that matters. That's all that
Absolutely.
matters. Everyone is your brothers and sisters. That's how we should embrace each other. And we are responsible for how we cultivate those gifts. At the end of the day, we're not responsible for what other people choose to do or say or use that information. We're in charge of our own decisions and choices. And I thought that was such a wonderful point, and it just so mirrored everything that you just said, because
Absolutely.
it's so true. And I love how Spirit showed you that, because it was, look, we're all together.
Yeah.
We were not in clubs here. We
We're all
didn't cast people
navigating
out.
this human journey in these meat suits.
Yeah. And it's so centered in love.
It is. Yeah.
It's so centered in love. This work is so beautiful.